The first rays of dawn spilled across the tarmac of Air Force Base, catching the sleek lines of the F-22 Raptors parked in disciplined formation. Captain walked along the row of aircraft with a practiced eye, checking each control surface, inspecting panels, and ensuring every bolt gleamed. To the untrained observer, the jets seemed invincible, their polished exteriors reflecting the rising sun. However, each one was a living machine, unpredictable and demanding, requiring respect, precision, and constant vigilance. Her fingers brushed the canopy, a habitual gesture, and she whispered a quiet greeting to the aircraft she had flown countless hours before. Was known among her peers not only for her extraordinary skill, but for her calm under pressure. Her teammates often joked that she could land a fighter jet blindfolded while reading a technical manual aloud. Yet behind the confidence was a woman who understood the razor-thin line between mastery and disaster. Today's exercise promised to be rigorous, a high-stakes aerial combat simulation designed to push every pilot to their limits. The hum of engines beginning to warm on the runway signaled that the morning ritual had begun. Other pilots joked and laughed, attempting to lighten the tension that always accompanied flight day, smiled faintly at their camaraderie but didn't allow herself to be distracted. Her mind was already running through checklists: fuel levels, hydraulic pressures, radar calibration, and weapon systems, though today the latter were purely simulated. Every detail mattered. As she climbed into the cockpit, the leather gloves snug on her hands, the familiar smell of the aircraft's interior enveloped her. The seats were molded to her form, every control within reach, every instrument a precise extension of her senses. The heads-up display flickered to life, painting critical flight information across the canopy. She adjusted her helmet, tested her oxygen mask, and ran through final systems diagnostics. Everything seemed normal. And yet a subtle anomaly in the engine gauge caught her eye, a slight fluctuation, almost imperceptible. She noted it silently, a shadow of caution in the back of her mind. The airfield buzzed with controlled chaos as ground crew performed their final checks. Squadron Commander Lieutenant Colonel Mark approached with a clipboard in hand. "Morning, Captain, ready to show them how it's done," he said with a grin, returned a small smile. "Always, sir. Let's see what the skies got for us today." As she taxied toward the runway, the roar of the engine surged, vibrating through her body. The sensation was intoxicating, a mixture of power, freedom, and responsibility. The ground blurred beneath her as the jet accelerated, lifting gracefully into the crisp morning air. Below, the base shrank, buildings and hangars reduced to tiny models, while above, the vast expanse of sky promised exhilaration and challenge. The clouds glinted pink and gold as the sun climbed, and felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. In the cockpit, instruments flickered in harmonious rhythm, tracking altitude, speed, and G-forces. Comms crackled with the familiar chatter of her squadron. Check-ins, friendly banter, and tactical coordination responded with precise, calm commands, her voice steady, projecting control. Every movement was methodical, every decision deliberate. Yet behind her calm exterior, a subtle tension lingered. Flying an F-22 was never routine. Even in controlled exercises, danger waited in the margins. As the formation leveled off, thoughts turned inward. She reflected on the countless hours of training, the nights spent poring over manuals, the simulations that had pushed her to exhaustion. Experience had taught her that success in the air depended not only on skill, but on respect for the machine, the environment, and oneself. Today, she thought, would be a test, not only of technical mastery but of instinct. The morning air was crisp and exhilarating, filled with the hum of engines and the smell of jet fuel. The squadron soared in tight formation, the horizon stretching infinitely ahead. Adjusted her throttle, feeling the F-22 respond instantly, every control input precise and predictable. Yet, as she glanced at her instruments, the subtle anomaly she had noticed earlier flickered again. It was minor, almost inconsequential, but in the world of supersonic flight, Even a minor irregularity could be the difference between a routine mission and disaster. She tightened her grip on the controls, exhaling slowly. "Let's see what the sky has in store," she whispered to herself, eyes scanning the endless blue ahead. Somewhere beyond the clouds, challenges awaited, testing not only her skill but her courage. And was ready. The formation sliced through the crisp morning sky, jets roaring in a synchronized symphony of power. Captain felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, each pulse synced with the rhythm of the engines beneath her. The F-22 responded instantly to her inputs, soaring with fluid grace, wings glinting as the sun reflected off their angular surfaces. Around her, the squadron moved like a single organism, banking, rolling, and diving in perfect coordination. Ground controllers monitored the maneuvers with admiration, while the pilots pushed themselves and their aircraft to the edge of precision. Eyes scanned the horizon constantly, instruments reflecting speed, altitude, and the subtle feedback of the air around her. Her hands moved with instinctive efficiency, adjusting throttle and control surfaces as if the jet were an extension of her body. Though this was a training exercise, every maneuver carried the weight of real consequences. A miscalculation, a momentary lapse of attention, could result in disaster. The sky, vast and beautiful, was also indifferent and unforgiving. The exercise demanded complex aerobatic sequences, high-speed turns, barrel rolls, and simulated combat engagement with enemy aircraft. Coordinated with her wingmen, issuing commands calmly and clearly over the comms. "Falcon 1, adjust 5 degrees left, formation tight," she said. Responses crackled back. Confirmations, status updates, and occasional light-hearted banter. The camaraderie was comforting. Yet beneath it lay the tension that only pilots in supersonic jets truly understand. As she executed a particularly tight maneuver, felt a subtle tremor through the aircraft. A small stutter in the engines, almost imperceptible, flickered across the display. She noted it, her mind registering the anomaly without panic. In the heat of maneuvers, minor glitches were not uncommon, but experience had taught her to trust her instincts. Something was slightly off. She tightened her grip on the controls, maintaining smooth, precise adjustments, as though coaxing the jet to respond. The wind whistled past the canopy, a constant roar in her ears. The sensation of speed was intoxicating, almost like liquid energy coursing through her body. Instruments flickered across the heads-up display, showing precise telemetry, airspeed, G-force, angle of attack, monitored each reading with meticulous care, balancing technical analysis with instinctive reactions. The F-22 was a marvel of engineering, but in her hands it demanded respect, awareness, and flawless technique. Suddenly, the slight anomaly she had noticed earlier intensified. A warning light blinked briefly, accompanied by a low-level alarm. Her heart quickened, though her voice remained steady over the comms. "Falcon 2, status check," she called. Her wingman replied immediately, "All systems nominal here, Falcon 1. You okay?" Nodded to herself, focusing on maintaining control. "Copy that, continuing exercise." There was no room for hesitation. The sky seemed to close in, clouds forming streaks of white against the endless blue. Pushed the jet into a steep bank, following the planned maneuver with calculated precision. But the subtle engine stutter persisted, a minor irregularity that refused to vanish. Every pilot knows that small anomalies in a fighter jet can escalate rapidly. Its experience told her to stay alert. She ran emergency checklists mentally while maintaining formation, balancing awareness with instinct. Despite the unease, remained calm, projecting confidence through her voice. Her squadron trusted her judgment implicitly, and she could not betray that trust. She executed the next sequence flawlessly, the F-22 responding to her commands with razor-sharp precision. Yet the nagging feeling of something amiss never left her. High above the base, cutting through sunlight and clouds, she realized that the sky's beauty belied hidden danger. Every second counted, and the next few moments would test not just her skill, but her instinct, courage, and ability to act under extreme pressure. Tightened her jaw and exhaled slowly. The horizon stretched endlessly before her, a canvas of blue and white. Somewhere in that vast expanse, the first signs of real danger were waiting. She knew it, felt it in the subtle vibration of the jet and the quiet alarm in her mind. The calm of the morning had begun to fracture, replaced by the thrilling tension of the unknown, and Captain was ready to face it. The horizon suddenly shifted, not in color or cloud, but in the rhythm of the aircraft itself. Felt a subtle but alarming shift in the controls, a hesitation in the responsiveness of the jet that sent a spike of instinctive concern through her. A warning light blinked urgently on the heads-up display, accompanied by a low-pitched alarm she had hoped never to hear in a live exercise. The F-22 was stalling. Her mind snapped into hyperfocus. Every second stretched, measured by the milliseconds of decision-making that separated control from catastrophe. She called out over the comms, her voice calm but commanding. "Falcon 2, Falcon 3, I'm experiencing a stall. Maintain formation, keep distance, and advise ground control." Responses crackled back assurances, confirmations, but barely registered them. Her attention was on the delicate dance between physics and survival. The aircraft shuddered violently, wings threatening to lose lift as airspeed faltered. In the blink of an eye, the sky transformed from playground to predator. The G-forces pressed against her chest, pushing her into the seat as the jet pitched downward. Instruments flickered with an almost desperate urgency. Angle of attack approaching critical limits, speed dropping faster than expected, altitude bleeding away. Below, the Earth seemed to rise with terrifying speed. Training took over. Years of simulations, emergency drills, and live exercises condensed into a single, precise mental map of action. Adjusted thrust vectoring, tilting the nozzles to redirect the jet's trajectory. She manipulated the control surfaces with delicate yet forceful movements, coaxing lift where the atmosphere seemed to resist. Each correction was instantaneous, precise, and deliberate. There was no room for error. Her squadron watched, tense and silent, as the lead jet faltered. Falcon 2 reported in, voice tight. "Copy, Falcon 1. Maintaining visual, you've got this." The encouragement barely registered. Focus was locked entirely on the instrument cluster, the shaking of the aircraft, and the invisible forces pressing against every control. She felt the subtle shift of weight, the faint vibration signaling potential engine stress, and adjusted her inputs accordingly. Time stretched. The stall worsened, and the ground drew closer with alarming velocity. His heart hammered in rhythm with the pulsing alarms, yet her mind remained extraordinarily calm. She compartmentalized fear, isolating it behind layers of focus and skill. Every instinct honed over years of training now directed the jet's survival. She could feel the aircraft teetering between the edge of aerodynamic chaos and the controlled environment of her mastery. She whispered under her breath, almost to the jet itself, "Come on, respond." The F-22 groaned and shuddered as though acknowledging her plea. Slowly, agonizingly, the nose lifted slightly, a minuscule correction but enough to indicate the aircraft was listening. Adjusted the throttle, angled her wings, and applied calculated pressure to the rudder and elevons. Her hands moved with fluid precision, coaxing stability from a situation that had the potential to become catastrophic. The seconds stretched into eternity. Instruments stabilized slightly, showing that the stall had not yet become a full-blown dive, but danger remained imminent. The roar of the engines, once a song of freedom, now sounded almost like a warning. His breathing remained steady, training overriding panic, as she calculated the next maneuver with mathematical precision. The sky was a battlefield, and she had only a few critical moments to reclaim control. Every pilot knows that stalling an F-22 is rare and dangerous. Recovery requires not only technical skill but instinctive harmony with the aircraft. Felt every vibration, every shudder, as if the jet were an extension of her own body. Her thoughts raced faster than any autopilot could calculate. Comms continued to buzz with concern from her squadron and ground control, but filtered all external noise into background static. The task was singular: save the jet, regain lift, and survive. As the jet hovered on the knife's edge between gravity and flight, prepared for the final, precise maneuver that could pull the F-22 from certain doom, she adjusted the throttle again, calculated a subtle twist in her bank angle and waited for the aircraft to respond. The first flicker of hope appeared in the instruments, lift returning, wings stabilizing. The sky, once a silent threat, seemed to hesitate, giving her a chance to act. Poised, calm, and unyielding, was about to prove that even when the laws of physics conspire against you, skill, focus, and courage can tip the balance back toward life. The world outside the canopy transformed into a blur of blue and white streaks as the F-22 nosed downward, plummeting at a speed that made the Earth seem to rush up to meet her. Gritted her teeth, feeling the force of gravity press her body into the seat with a weight that seemed almost unbearable. Instruments screamed warnings. Angle of attack critical, altitude bleeding rapidly, speed fluctuating unpredictably. Every second stretched into an eternity, each millisecond a potential difference between life and death. Her hands, steady yet trembling with controlled intensity, manipulated the flight controls with surgical precision. Thrust vectoring, rudder input, elevon adjustments, all were deployed in a delicate balance, a symphony of microcorrections designed to regain stability. The F-22 shuddered violently, metal straining against forces it was never meant to endure. Her mind raced through all emergency protocols, but she realized that conventional responses were insufficient. This moment required ingenuity, intuition, and a touch of daring she had only ever practiced in simulations. Over the comms, her squadron reacted in real time. "Falcon 1, you're going vertical," shouted Falcon 2. "Stay steady, you've got this." But their words were drowned out by the roar of the engines, the whine of wind, and the deafening chorus of alarms. Filtered the noise, letting her instincts take the forefront. Every movement was decisive, every adjustment a negotiation with physics itself. She visualized the jet as an extension of her own body, a living entity responding to her intent. The ground rushed closer. Clouds passed beneath her like rushing water. Eyes flicked from instruments to horizon, monitoring speed, altitude, and the subtle feedback of air pressure. The stall's grip was still strong, threatening to spiral the jet into an unrecoverable dive. Sweat beaded on her brow, and yet her breathing remained controlled, almost meditative. She knew that panicking would mean failure. Survival demanded composure, focus, and a willingness to push the aircraft beyond conventional limits. Applied a subtle twist of the throttle, redirecting the jet, thrust slightly downward to arrest the fall. The F-22 responded, groaning under stress, wings bending as if resisting her commands. She executed a series of microbanks, each smaller than a degree, each calculated to redistribute lift and regain airflow over the wings. The jet shuddered again, nearly tipping into a spin, but anticipated the movement and countered, restoring equilibrium with a deft flick of the rudder. In those moments, time slowed. Every heartbeat, every flicker of instruments, every vibration transmitted through the cockpit became a guide. She whispered to herself, a mantra against panic: steady, control, focus. The F-22 responded minutely at first, then more decisively, lifting slightly, regaining precious airspeed. The edge of the abyss was still there, looming like a predator, but its precision had begun to wrest control from gravity's unyielding pull. The roar of engines, once threatening, became her ally as she carefully modulated power, coaxing the jet upward. Each second counted. Below, clouds raced past, the ground a blurred canvas of green and brown. She banked slightly, shifting weight and thrust to regain stability while simultaneously avoiding excessive G-force that could incapacitate her. Her eyes, sharp and unblinking, monitored every meter of altitude regained. Gradually, the jet stabilized, not fully but enough to regain confidence. The stall was no longer a death sentence but a challenge that she had begun to master. Exhaled sharply, though her body remained tense, prepared for further corrections. Comms crackled again. "Falcon 1, unbelievable, you're pulling out." Falcon 3's voice carried awe and relief. Responded calm but firm, stabilized, continuing maneuver. In that heartbeat, realized something profound. She had danced on the edge of physics, coaxing life from metal and air through sheer skill and instinct. The sky, which moments ago threatened to swallow her, now offered a narrow, hard-won path back to safety. Yet the danger had not fully passed. She knew she would have to guide the jet all the way to secure altitude, carefully balancing recovery with forward momentum. Every micro-adjustment she made now was a testament to experience, intuition, and courage. The sky, once a harbinger of doom, had become a proving ground for mastery, and Captain had taken the first step in transforming near catastrophe into survival. Gritted her teeth, feeling the subtle tremor of the F-22 under her hands as she began the critical recovery maneuver. Every instinct and hour of training converged into one precise plan: regain lift, stabilize the aircraft, and reclaim control before gravity's relentless pull claimed the jet. Her hands moved with a practiced fluidity, adjusting throttle, rudder, and elevons in perfect harmony, each microcorrection nudging the plane back from the edge. The roar of the engine seemed to cheer her on, metal vibrating as if responding to her will. The sky, once a blur of blue and white streaks, seemed to slow, each moment stretching into eternity. Visualize the F-22 as an extension of her own body, every movement intuitive. She initiated a subtle twist, banking just enough to redistribute airflow over the wings, coaxing lift from the thinning atmosphere. The jet groaned under stress, wings bending with the strain, yet each micro-adjustment brought it incrementally closer to stability. Her pulse raced, but her voice remained calm over the comms. "Falcon 2, hold formation. I'm stabilizing." Her squadron responded with tense acknowledgement. "Copy, Falcon 1. You're almost there," came Falcon 3's voice, all underlying every word. Ground control monitored silently, the tension palpable even through radio static. Filtered all distractions, focusing entirely on the delicate physics at play. Seconds became lifetimes as she applied precision adjustments, balancing thrust with angle of attack, coaxing the jet into a climb without overstressing its systems. The ground below, once a looming threat, began to recede as the jet responded. A small lift, almost imperceptible, appeared on the instruments, leaned into the control stick, modulating carefully to reinforce the upward momentum. The F-22 responded, though every movement was a negotiation between physics and human skill. Each second, each degree of tilt mattered. She could feel the jet teetering on the edge, yet inching toward life. Whispered to herself, a quiet mantra against panic: lift, control, trust. The engines roared in response, thrust vectoring compensating for aerodynamic instability. Slowly, almost agonizingly, the nose began to climb. Velocity stabilized, wings regained partial lift, and the indicators reflected the minuscule but critical recovery. Sweat traced lines across her brow, but her expression remained controlled, almost serene. In that moment, survival demanded nothing less than perfection. With her training as her guide, executed a sequence of microbanks and slight climbs, gradually stabilizing the jet. The instruments stopped screaming and the chaotic vibrations eased. The stall, once a looming specter, now lay subdued, tamed by precise manipulation of both machine and mind. Around her, the squadron exhaled silently, witnessing the near-impossible feat. Falcon 2 broke through the tension. Falcon 1, that was incredible. The maneuver wasn't over yet. New full control required a careful climb to safe altitude, avoiding excessive G-forces that could compromise both her body and the aircraft. She eased the F-22 into a gentle, ascending arc, the horizon tilting gently beneath her. Her pulse began to slow, though alertness remained razor-sharp. Every instrument now indicated stability, but her eyes remained vigilant, scanning the skis for turbulence, remaining aware of any residual imbalance. Finally, the jet leveled, engines humming steadily, wings holding true, exhaled, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The moment of near-death had passed, replaced by the sober triumph of control regained. Comms buzzed with excitement and relief. "Falcon 1, you pulled it back. Outstanding work." Ground control echoed the sentiment, marveling at the skill displayed. Allowed herself a small smile, acknowledging the silent dialogue between pilot and machine that had saved her. In those minutes of desperation, she had danced on the edge of physics, pushing the limits of both technology and human instinct. The sky, once a harbinger of doom, had yielded to mastery. She had not only survived but demonstrated the extraordinary potential of focus, training, and courage in the face of extreme danger. As she guided the F-22 through the remaining ascent, steady and controlled, reflected on the thin line between catastrophe and triumph. One wrong input, one hesitation, could have ended everything. But now the aircraft soared under her mastery, a testament to skill, intuition, and human resilience. Captain had turned near certain doom into a stunning display of aerial precision. The roar of the F-22 engines gradually softened as guided the jet back toward the base. The tension that had gripped her muscles for what felt like an eternity began to ease, though her body remained taut with residual adrenaline. Each adjustment to the throttle, each gentle nudge of the control stick, was deliberate, ensuring the aircraft's systems remained stable. The once menacing warning lights now blinked calmly, instruments confirming that the jet had weathered the near-catastrophic stall. The sky, which moments ago had threatened to swallow her, now felt like a familiar, if unforgiving, companion. Below, the tarmac stretched toward her like a safe haven. Ground crew and tower personnel watched anxiously, aware that had faced a situation that could have ended in disaster. The F-22, a marvel of engineering, had endured tremendous stress, yet every movement in the cockpit reflected its precise command. She reduced speed carefully, aligning the aircraft with the runway, her eyes scanning instruments and horizon alike. Every landing is a negotiation with gravity, but today, the stakes had been far higher than routine. Her fellow pilots, flying in formation behind her, exhaled collectively as they saw the nose gear touch down smoothly. Applause crackled over the comms, but its expression remained focused. Falcon 2, Falcon 3 maintain approach. Touchdown complete, she reported evenly, projecting calm authority even as her own pulse remained elevated. The jet rolled along the runway, brakes applied, and she gradually brought the aircraft to a complete stop. As the engines powered down, silence enveloped the cockpit. Sat for a moment, absorbing the reality of survival. The physical strain was immense, muscles fatigued, adrenaline still coursing. But it was the mental weight that lingered most. She reflected on the razor-thin margin that separated catastrophe from triumph, the split seconds of decision-making that had determined the outcome. In those moments of crisis, training and instinct had converged, each guiding her to precise, life-saving action. Once the canopy opened, climbed out, and was greeted by her squadron, fellow pilots approached, faces a mixture of relief, awe, and admiration. "That was unreal," said Falcon 2, shaking his head. "You pulled that jet back from certain doom. I don't know if anyone else could have done it." Smiled faintly, brushing off the praise with her characteristic humility. "It's all training and focus. The jet did exactly what it was built to do, and I just guided it." Engineers quickly moved in to inspect the F-22. They noted minor stress marks on the wings and a slight strain on the thrust vectoring nozzles, but nothing catastrophic. The aircraft had endured forces that could have shredded lesser machines. Ground control debriefed, and the squadron, replaying telemetry and maneuver data. Analysts marveled at her recovery, nodding decisions that would be incorporated into future training programs. Even in a controlled exercise, few pilots could have executed such a recovery with such composure. As the sun dipped low behind the hangars, casting long shadows across the airfield, walked among the jets, reflecting on the experience. Survival in the skis depended not just on skill but on respect for the aircraft, for physics, and for oneself. She understood now more clearly than ever the fragile balance between life and catastrophe, the invisible line that separates control from disaster. Later, in the quiet of the briefing room, reviewed the day's events. She analyzed each decision, each micro-correction, understanding what had worked and why. The experience reinforced a lesson she had long known. Courage without discipline is reckless, and skill without focus is meaningless. She also recognized the human element, the trust between pilots, the reliance on her squadron, and the coordination with ground control. Heroism in the sky is rarely solitary. It is built on teamwork and shared responsibility. As night fell, gazed out across the base, the F-22s resting silently on the tarmac. Today had tested everything she had learned, every ounce of instinct and training. She had survived the impossible, pulled the jet back from certain doom, and returned to solid ground with skill and calm. But more than survival, she had reaffirmed her mastery, her discipline, and her respect for the delicate balance between pilot and machine. In the quiet aftermath, she allowed herself the smallest smile, proof that the sky, no matter how unforgiving, could be conquered. The next morning, the base buzzed with an unusual energy. Word of Captain Extraordinary recovery had spread quickly through the squadron, the control tower, and even into the halls of command. Engineers, instructors, and fellow pilots alike marveled at the precision, composure, and ingenuity she had displayed when the F-22 had stalled. While some called it luck, those who truly understood the aircraft and its demands knew it was the product of years of discipline, training, and instinct honed to perfection. Arrived at the squadron briefing room, where the commanding officer and flight instructors had gathered. Charts, telemetry data, and video recordings from the cockpit and surrounding aircraft were displayed on large monitors. Every movement, angle, and adjustment she had made during the recovery was analyzed frame by frame. It was a teaching moment, one that would be incorporated into training protocols for years to come. Even instructors admitted that few pilots could execute such a maneuver under pressure. Lieutenant Colonel Mark approached with a clipboard, a mixture of pride and awe in his eyes. "Captain, your actions yesterday were beyond exemplary. You turned a near-catastrophic situation into in piloting. This will be studied and referenced for years." Nodded, her calm demeanor betraying little of the exhaustion she still felt. "It was a team effort, sir. The jet, my squadron, and ground control all played a role. I just guided the aircraft." Her humility only reinforced the admiration of those around her. Pilots and trainees gathered, eager to learn. Was asked to walk them through the sequence, to explain the minute adjustments, the thought processes behind each decision, and the importance of anticipating even the smallest anomalies. She demonstrated the subtle manipulation of thrust vectoring, rudder input, and elevon control that had stabilized the jet. Students hung on her every word, absorbing the lessons that combined physics, engineering, and instinct into practical knowledge. The experience had taught more than technical skill. She reflected on the human element of aviation, trust, communication, and shared responsibility. The calm voices of her squadron during the crisis, the precise guidance from ground control, and the reliability of the aircraft itself had all contributed to survival. Heroism, she realized, was rarely a solitary act. It was collaboration, preparation, and courage under pressure. She emphasized these points to the trainees, instilling in them the understanding that mastery was built not only on skill but on humility and vigilance. Even as accolades and commendations circulated, remained grounded. She understood the thin line between confidence and arrogance, between skill and overreach. Each flight, no matter how routine, demanded respect for the aircraft and for the forces at play. She encouraged young pilots to trust their training, yet remain alert to unexpected challenges. "No matter how many hours you fly, the sky will always demand respect," she reminded them. "It tests your focus, your instinct, and your judgment every second." Beyond the technical and strategic lessons, also imparted a more personal insight: resilience. She spoke of the mental discipline required to remain calm under extreme pressure, the ability to focus even as adrenaline surged, and the importance of channeling fear into constructive action. These lessons resonated deeply with the pilots, bridging the gap between theory and real-life application. By the end of the day, Story had transformed from an individual act of heroism into a symbol of mastery, teamwork, and perseverance. Her calm, precise leadership in the face of danger had inspired not only her squadron but the entire base. The recovery of the F-22 from near-certain doom would become part of the culture of excellence at the base, a benchmark for pilots to aspire to. As she left the briefing room, gazed out across the airfield. The jets rested silently on the tarmac, gleaming under the afternoon sun. Each one held potential danger and the promise of mastery for the pilots who commanded them. She understood that her actions had left a mark not just on machines, but on the minds and hearts of those who would follow. Her legacy, she realized, was not in accolades but in the lessons she imparted, the courage, precision, and discipline required to conquer the skies. Weeks had passed since the near disaster, but the story of Captain Extraordinary recovery of her F-22 had not faded. The squadron moved through their daily routines with renewed purpose, every pilot quietly aware of the standard had set. Trainees approached their instructors with newfound determination, eager to emulate the precision, calm, and courage they had witnessed or studied from her example. Had become more than a pilot. She was a symbol of mastery in the skis, an embodiment of skill, instinct, and human resilience. Herself returned to the cockpit with familiar ease, the leather gloves snug on her hands, the canopy closed, and the engines roaring to life. Yet this flight was different, not a crisis, but a reaffirmation of discipline and focus. She led her squadron into formation, executing maneuvers with the effortless grace of someone intimately acquainted with both the aircraft and the sky's mercurial temperament. Young pilots watched in awe, absorbing lessons not through lectures but through observation, inspired by the quiet authority she exuded. The F-22s carved through the morning clouds, streaks of silver and gray against the brilliant blue. His mind was fully present, attuned to every vibration, every subtle shift in airflow. She guided her aircraft as if it were an extension of her own body, her instincts synchronized with the machine's responses. Though the previous ordeal had tested her to the limits of skill and endurance, it had also reaffirmed the profound connection between pilot and aircraft. Every flight demanded respect, precision, and vigilance, principles she now embodied more fully than ever. On the ground, her legacy had begun to shape the squadron's culture. Flight instructors incorporated her recovery into training modules, simulating stalls, emergency maneuvers, and split-second decision-making. New pilots studied the telemetry, video footage, and analyses of her actions, learning the delicate interplay of physics, intuition, and calm under pressure. Discussions in the briefing room often referenced her example, how focus, preparation, and trust in both technology and instinct could turn a life-threatening situation into a triumph of human skill. Also embraced the role of mentor. She spent time with trainees, sharing insights not just about technical procedures but about resilience and mental discipline. The sky will always test you, she told them. It doesn't matter how skilled you are, always respect the aircraft, respect the physics, and respect your own limits. Panic is the enemy. Focus is your greatest ally. Her words carried weight, drawn from experience and proven under the most extreme circumstances. As days passed, his reputation extended beyond the base. Other squadrons, command staff, and even media reports highlighted her remarkable recovery, though she remained modest, never claiming heroism for herself. To her, the act had been a demonstration of training, teamwork, and instinct, a reminder that survival in the sky depended on preparation, precision, and courage. Yet, for those who witnessed it, she became an exemplar of what human skill could achieve in partnership with cutting-edge technology. One afternoon, after another flawless training session, climbed out of her jet and gazed across the airfield. The F-22s rested silently, gleaming in the sunlight, each representing both power and responsibility. She thought about the pilots who would follow in her footsteps, the lessons embedded in their training, and the inspiration that could carry them through the most dangerous skis. Every maneuver, every decision, every ounce of courage had created ripples far beyond a single flight. In the cockpit felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had faced near-certain doom, mastered it, and emerged not just intact but stronger, more capable, and more attuned to the demands of flight. The sky was still vast, unpredictable, and challenging, yet she no longer feared its power. She had learned to respect it, master it, and inspire others to do the same. As the squadron climbed into the clouds, the sun glinting off polished wings, thoughts lingered on the future. Her legacy would endure, not in accolades or reports, but in the precision, courage, and discipline of every pilot who had witnessed or studied her remarkable feat. The sky, once a crucible of danger, had become a proving ground of mastery. Captain had not only survived the edge of disaster, she had shown others how to soar beyond it.